Check this out. BCM Raider here, bringing you another Commander deck tech. Today, we're going to revisit Dina Soulsteeper. This is a Golgari Aristocrats deck where we're going to have a whole bunch of different creatures that we're going to sacrifice for value, whether it be for life gain, drawing cards, forcing our opponents to sacrifice creature, stuff like that. But primarily, we're going to use Dina. That way, whenever we gain life, each opponent is going to lose life. So we're going to have every single aspect of draining our opponent's life total, and we're going to gain life. And we're going to be doing a whole bunch of other stuff as well. So let's get right into it. Let's get into the enchantments first. First up is Exquisite Blood. Exquisite Blood is going to create a infinite chain reaction with Dina. All you have to do is gain one singular life, and this will start this chain reaction of whenever you gain life, each opponent loses one life. And when you do, it'll trigger Exquisite Blood, because Exquisite Blood is worded the opposite way. Whenever a opponent loses life, you gain that much life, and your opponents lose the game on the spot. So there's that. Now we have Pattern of Rebirth. We're going to enchant this on a creature that we're going to sacrifice. That way we can go search our library for any creature we want. The creature I mainly search for is Protean Hulk, because Protean Hulk will allow us to go get a certain combo in one shot. Now we have the Meat Hook Massacre. That way we can kill all our opponent's creatures at one time. That way they all hit the graveyard at the same time, and it'll have the static effect. Whenever a creature we control dies, each opponent loses a life, and whenever a creature our opponent's control goes to the graveyard, we get to gain a life, which triggers Dina. Now we have my personal favorite with Dictate of Erebos. That way, whenever a creature we control dies, it'll force our opponent to sacrifice a creature as well. And within that, we are playing Grave Pact, because having both of these and forcing your opponents to sacrifice as many creatures as possible is very good. Okay, now we have a very good way to draw lots of cards using our life total, because we're going to be gaining life. Might as well turn our life total into a very powerful draw engine with Necropotence. Plus, it's a really cool card. Now we have a bunch of static effects of whenever creatures we control either die or gain life. First up is Moldervine Reclamation. Whenever a creature we control goes to the graveyard, we get to gain a life and draw a card. This card will synergize with everything we want to do. And because we're gaining life, why not make a bunch of 4/4 Fungus Beast tokens with Trample? Now we have Bastion of Remembrance. This is a very powerful effect, because when Bastion of Remembrance enters the battlefield, we get a 1/1 token that we can use. And whenever a creature we control dies, each opponent loses a life and we gain a life. Okay. Now we have a Sacrifice Outlet with Vampiric Rites. This will gain us a life and draw a card. Now we have Blight Mound. Blight Mound is primarily here just to give us additional sacrifice fodder with these pest tokens. You can attack with the pests if you need to, but pretty much they're just here to be sacrificed. That way we gain life. Now we have Blood Chief Ascension. Blood Chief Ascension is a very powerful enchantment. It's so easy to get this card online, because All we have to do is have our opponents lose 2 or more life each turn. And when there's 3 or more quest counters on this, whenever a card is put into your opponent's graveyard from anywhere, whether that be casting it, milling, or discarding, they're going to lose 2 life. We're going to gain 2 life. Let's get into the instance. I'm only playing 3, and these are mainly tutor effects. So we have Vampiric Tutor, Worldly Tutor, and Court of Calling. That way we can go get whatever creatures we need. We have Demonic Tutor. These are our sorceries. We're running a lot more sorceries. So we have Demonic Tutor, because we're playing black. Diabolic Intent. I like Diabolic Intent because it's a tutor effect, but also it's another way for us to sacrifice something with its additional cost. Now we have Imperial Seal. Grim Tutor. Similar to Diabolic Intent, we have Beseech the Mirror. This will be a tutor effect and a sacrifice effect, but also if we paid the bargain by sacrificing a enchantment, token, or artifact, we get to search our library for any card with mana value 4 or less, and we get to cast that card without paying its mana cost. That's a very powerful effect. Now we have Green Sun Zenith. This is going to shuffle back in. That way we can keep reusing it over and over. Now we have Awaken the Woods. If we have a lot of mana, we could dump a lot of mana into X, thus getting a lot of Forest Dryad tokens that we can use in various different ways. Now we have Toxic Deluge and Damnation as our 2 mass removal spells. Now we have a very specific sorcery that's going to be a infinite combo piece with Chain of Smog. The artifacts. Of course, we're playing Soul Ring. Talisman of Resilience. My personal favorite, because it pairs so nicely with Dina, is Mind Crank. Whenever a opponent loses life, they're going to mill that many. Now we have Skull Clamp. Skull Clamp is going to ensure that the creatures go to the graveyard. That way we can draw cards. Now we have Bantu's Monument. This is going to help us with the black creature cost reduction, but also whenever we cast a creature, each opponent's going to lose a life, we're going to gain a life. Now we have Sensei's Divining Top. That way we can look at the top 3 and arrange them how we need to. And if it's a spell we really need to draw, we'll just activate top and draw it. But it does pair very nicely with this artifact, which is Bolus's Citadel. Because we're going to have a high life total. We're going to use that life total to help cast spells off the top of our library. Okay, now we have the iconic Ashnod's Altar and Phyrexian Altar. These are both very useful sacrifice artifacts that we're going to use to produce mana. But also, with Ashnod's Altar, we are running the Grave Titan Nim Death Mantle combo, which will produce us infinite colorless mana. So that's why we're running Nim Death Mantle. Okay, let's get into those creatures. First up is Birds of Paradise. Delighted Halfling. This is, I feel, the best commander 1-drop mana dork. Now we have good old Steve. Steve's going to help us by getting us basic lands, but also we can just Skull Clamp this and draw 2 cards. Now we have Deathrite Shaman. This is going to help us deal with cards in our opponent's graveyard, whether it be lands, instants, sorceries, or creature cards. Now we have Viscera Seer as our main sacrifice outlet. That way we can scry. Now we have Carrion Feeder as another sacrifice outlet. But this guy is going to get really large. Now we have Bloodghast. Bloodghast is going to be the creature that's going to keep coming back each turn with a land drop. That way we can continually sacrifice it in various different ways. Now we have Scavenging Ooze to deal with cards in our opponent's graveyard. But if that card was a creature card, Scavenging Ooze is going to get bigger and we're going to gain life, which will trigger Dina. Now we have Death Greeter. Death Greeter is phenomenal because these creatures now I'm about to show you are all going to synergize with creatures going to the graveyard or entering the battlefield. So we have Death Greeter. Whenever any creature goes to the graveyard, we're going to gain a life. Prosperous Innkeeper. This will give us a treasure token, but also whenever any creature we control enters the battlefield, we're going to gain a life. Essence Warden. Same thing, except this will trigger whenever any creature enters the battlefield. Now we have Blood Artist and Zulaport Cutthroat. These are very similar. These will trigger whenever creatures go to the graveyard, thus forcing our opponent to lose life and we gain life. Now we have Veto. Veto is very powerful. For the simple fact of we can give all our creatures lifelink. Now we have some token generators. First up is Chatterfang, because we're going to be creating tokens, so why not get even more tokens? But also, we can activate Chatterfang, sacrifice those squirrels to deal with our opponent's creatures, thus getting more death triggers. It pairs really nicely with Ophiomancer because whenever we make a snake, we're going to get a squirrel, which is fun. But also, Ophiomancer is going to trigger every single upkeep. So to ensure that we continually get tokens, we're just going to sacrifice that snake token. And to pair very nicely with the Bloodghast going to the graveyard a lot is Pawn of Ulamog. I'm sure there's some kind of infinite combo with Pawn, but we're not running that in this deck. This is strictly here just to trigger the Eldrazi Scion tokens. Now we have Pitiless Plunderer. This will trigger every single time a creature we control goes to the graveyard by giving us our treasures. Now we have Mirkwood Bats. This is just going to force our opponents to lose life whenever we create tokens or sacrifice tokens. Now we have Sir Conrad. This card's insane. This guy is going to trigger anytime a creature goes to the graveyard or is milled or discarded, and just by paying a black and a colorless, we each get to mill. Now we have Ayara, First of Locthwain. She's going to trigger every single time either she enters the battlefield or another black creature enters, with our opponents losing 1 life and we gain 1 life. And we can sacrifice another black creature to draw a card. Now we have a very powerful one with Bloodletter of Acolytes. That way, all this life our opponents are losing, they're going to lose twice that much. And it blocks flyers. Now we have a personal favorite of mine with Massacre Worm. I love Massacre Worm. He's going to come in. He's going to give all your opponent's creatures -2/-2. And then whenever those creatures die, they're going to lose 2 life per creature that died. Now we have Protean Hulk. He's the main creature that we're going to go get That way we can sacrifice Protean Hulk to go get one of our many combo pieces, such as Witherbloom Apprentice, which paired very nicely with Chain of Smog. This is a very cool combo because all we have to do is target ourselves. We keep discarding cards. We're going to keep triggering Magecraft, and our opponents are going to lose 1 life. We're going to gain 1 life as many times as we repeat this process. Now we have Grave Titan. Apart from the whole infinite colorless mana with Ashnod's Altar and Nim Deathmantle, he's just a very solid creature on his own because he can hold his own. He's a 6/6 with Death Touch, and whenever he enters or attacks, we're going to get 2/2/2 black zombies. Now we got a fun one for you. I have Yawgmoth Thran Physician that we're going to use Young Wolf and Strangleroot Geist. Both of these creatures have Undying. This is a combo to where we're going to pay life and draw cards. Effectively, we can draw our entire deck, but if we introduce this guy, Hapatra, Vizier of Poisons, he's going to have synergy whenever we put the minus counter on Strangleroot Geist or Young Wolf by giving us a 1/1 green snake token with Death Touch. The Death Touch is kind of irrelevant. This 4-card combo, along with Dina, is just going to end the game on the spot. Now we have the land base. This is a very simple land base. I just chose as much black and green mana as possible. So we have Command Tower, Verdant Catacombs, Overgrown Tomb, so we can go get it, Woodland Cemetery, Undergrowth Stadium, Twilight Mire as our filter land, Blooming Marsh as our speed land, Deathcap Glade as our slow land, Restless Cottage. This is a fun one because it'll become a 4/4 black and green horror creature, and whenever that creature attacks, we get to exile cards from our opponent's graveyard, but also it's going to give us a food token that we can have sit around. That way we can just gain life whenever we want to. Now we have Golgari Rot Farm, Llanowar Waste, Dark Boar Pathway. This will give us the option of either black mana or green mana. Now we have Barad-dûr. That way we can make more sacrifice fodder with the Orc token, because a creature is definitely going to go to the graveyard. So we can trigger this anytime that happens if it's untapped. Now we have Hive of the Eye Tyrant. Similar to Restless Cottage, this will become a 3/3 Beholder with Menace, and we get to exile a card from our opponent's graveyard. Bojuka Bog, in case we just need to exile the entire graveyard. Now we have Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. That way, all our lands are swamps. It's going to pair very nicely with this card, Cabal Coffers, because we're going to generate a lot of black mana. And who doesn't love doing that? Okay, now we have Boseiju. This will deal with our opponent's non-basic lands, artifacts, enchantments. It's just a very powerful land. Now we have a very synergistic land with this deck, with Sapseed Forest. We can go search for this land, but if we control 2 or more green permanents, we can just gain life whenever we want to and trigger Dina whenever we want. Now we have the original Dryad Arbor. Now we have Colony Garden. Colony Garden will enter the battlefield and give us a 0-1 plant. That way we can start this whole Aristocrats thing. Now we have Phyrexian Tower. We're gonna sacrifice these creatures and add 2 black mana. Now we have High Market. This is just another sacrifice outlet. That way we can sack the creature and gain life. Now we have Myron the Moaning Well. Similar to the other land, this will allow us to gain even more life if it's a very large creature, such as Grave Titan. And if we have Nim Death Mantle out, we can just sacrifice it, gain 6 life, pay 4 mana, get it back, and start that loop all over again. We are running 5 swamps and 5 forests. And that was the deck tech for Dina Soulsteeper. I really appreciate you guys coming back and allowing me to revisit this deck. This is one of my favorite commander decks. I play it a lot. It's a lot of fun. So be sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow me on TikTok, share these deck techs. I'll provide the entire deck list in the comments below. It'll be a link to Moxfield. So thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.